I opened my dream bakery and invited my family to the grand opening. Not one showed up. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person writing one of these posts. I've read stories on here for years, shaking my head at how cruel or entitled families can be. I always thought to myself, that can't be real. Not to that extent. But after what's happened with my own family, I get it. Some people are worse than strangers when it comes to the way they treat you. A little about me first. I'm 27, and for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to run a bakery. Not just bake at home or do it on the side, but really create a place where people could walk in and smell the cinnamon rolls straight out of the oven, see the peach cobblers on display, and feel like they'd stepped into something warm and welcoming. I've spent years saving for it, working long hours at my job as a bank teller, and learning everything I could from local bakers who were kind enough to show me a trick or two. My family, though? Let's just say they've never really been supportive. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. My brother Derek is 31, and my sister Lindsay is 29. Derek has always been the golden child, at least in my parents' eyes. He works as a financial advisor, makes good money, drives a BMW, and has a way of talking that makes people believe him, even when he's exaggerating or flat-out lying. Lindsay is quieter, but she's firmly in Derek's corner. If Derek says something, she nods along like a bobblehead. Then there's me. To them, I was always the one with silly hobbies. When I was a kid and wanted to bake instead of playing softball, Dad would sigh and say, "Not everything in life is about fun, Rachel. You need to think about stability." Mom wasn't as harsh, but she'd still add little comments like, "That's nice, honey, but you'll outgrow it." Spoiler alert, I never did. Anyway, after years of saving and planning, I finally signed a lease for a small but perfect corner spot downtown. It used to be a yarn shop, and the layout was cozy with big front windows that let in gorgeous morning light. I put everything I had into renovating it, painting the walls a soft buttercream yellow, buying commercial equipment, and designing the logo. The name of my bakery is Sweet Dawn Bakery. Simple, but it felt right, like a new beginning. When I sent out the invitations for the grand opening, I'll admit I was nervous. I worked 16-hour days to get the place ready in time, testing recipes, arranging the cafe tables, even hand-painting little chalkboard signs for each pastry. I wanted it to feel special. Of course, the most important thing to me was having my family there. Even after years of being dismissed, some part of me thought, maybe this time they'll see what I've accomplished. Maybe they'll finally be proud. The day before the opening, I texted our family group chat to remind everyone. Derek didn't respond, which wasn't unusual. He tends to ignore me unless he wants something. Lindsay just sent a thumbs-up emoji, and my parents said, "We'll see." That phrase, "we'll see," has been the soundtrack of my life. It's never a yes, never commitment, just that lukewarm maybe that leaves you hanging. I woke up at 4 a.m. the day of the grand opening to start baking. By 7 a.m., the place smelled like heaven: fresh apple turnovers, buttery croissants, and loaves of honey wheat bread. I even made a special red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting, just in case my family came. It had always been Derek's favorite. The first customers trickled in around 8. A jogger grabbed a coffee and a blueberry muffin. A mom with twin toddlers bought a dozen sugar cookies. By noon, I actually had a small crowd. Strangers were complimenting me, telling me how much they loved the cozy atmosphere. An elderly gentleman named Frank asked if I was hiring because his granddaughter was looking for work. I should have been on top of the world, but I kept glancing at the door. Every time the bell chimed, my heart jumped, thinking maybe it was Mom and Dad, or maybe Derek would surprise me, or Lindsay would stop by. Hour after hour passed. Nothing. Not a single familiar face. By late afternoon, when the rush had died down, I checked my phone. That's when I saw the photo in the family group chat. Derek standing next to his new Lexus, keys dangling from his finger, with my entire family gathered around him in our parents' driveway. They were celebrating his achievement award at work. Apparently he'd closed some big deal. The caption under the photo from Mom read, "So proud of you, Derek. You've made us all so happy today." I don't think I've ever felt a mix of anger and sadness that strong. I was sitting in my own bakery, something I had built from nothing, surrounded by the smell of vanilla and cinnamon. And they were all celebrating Derek, not even bothering to tell me they wouldn't come. Not a single message of apology, just silence. And then that photo, like rubbing salt in the wound. I closed up that evening feeling hollow. As I was locking the door, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Dad. For a split second, I thought maybe it was an apology, maybe an explanation. Instead, it read, "Rachel, we need to discuss the bakery. Call me when you can." When I got that text from Dad, "Rachel, we need to discuss the bakery," I just stood there staring at my phone like it was mocking me. The timing couldn't have been worse. I had just spent 12 hours on my feet, baking, smiling for customers, pretending not to notice the empty corner table where my family should have been sitting. The last thing I wanted was to discuss anything with him. The next day dragged on. I opened Sweet Dawn again, and thankfully customers started trickling in. A few even came back from the day before, saying they couldn't stop thinking about my chocolate chip scones. That gave me a little spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this business could work. But in the back of my mind, all I could think about was that conversation waiting for me at my parents' house. By the time I drove over there that evening, my stomach was in knots. Their house hasn't changed much since I was a kid. Same red brick exterior, same perfectly manicured lawn, same intimidating front door. Walking up the path, I felt like I was 12 again, bracing myself for one of Dad's serious talks. Mom answered the door. She gave me a polite smile, but it wasn't warm. "Rachel, you're here," she said, like I was a guest she hadn't been expecting. No hug, no "how's the bakery going?" Just a flat tone that made my heart sink. Inside, I saw Lindsay sitting at the dining table, scrolling through her phone. Derek was there too, of course, lounging in Dad's favorite leather recliner with one leg crossed over the other, looking like he owned the place. He smirked when he saw me. "Well, if it isn't the woman of the hour," Derek said. "How's life in the cupcake business?" I bit down the urge to respond. I knew if I snapped back, it would only give him more ammunition to use against me. Instead, I sat down at the table across from him, trying to keep my composure. Dad came in a moment later, carrying a stack of papers. He didn't bother with small talk. He placed the papers on the table, sat down, and folded his hands like he was chairing a board meeting. "Rachel," he began, "your mother and I have been talking, and we think it's time we had an honest discussion about your bakery." That pause before the word bakery told me everything. He said it like it was a bad habit, like smoking or gambling. I leaned back in my chair. "All right," I said cautiously. "What about it?" He adjusted his reading glasses and slid one of the papers toward me. It was a printout of an article about small businesses failing within the first 5 years. "Look," he said, tapping the page. "Statistics don't lie. Most bakeries go under. You've put yourself in a risky situation, and frankly, we're concerned about the financial implications. You need to be realistic." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the first thing he said to me about my bakery. No mention of the grand opening, no acknowledgement of how hard I'd worked, just statistics about failure. Derek chuckled from his chair. "He's right. You know, it's cute that you want to play business owner, but Dad's being generous giving you advice. You should listen." My blood was boiling, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I'm not playing business owner. I had a great turnout yesterday. Customers loved the food. This is something I've built from the ground up." Mom sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "We're not saying you haven't worked hard, Rachel. But Derek's success shows what stability looks like. He has a real career path with benefits and a 401k. We just don't want you to throw away your future chasing a hobby." That word, hobby, hit me like a slap. After everything I'd done, they still saw it as some childish distraction. Lindsay finally chimed in, not even looking up from her phone. "Maybe if you listened to them, you wouldn't end up broke. Just saying." I looked at each of them, feeling a mix of rage and hurt building in my chest. Then I turned back to Dad. "So why am I here? What exactly do you want to discuss?" That's when he dropped the bomb. "We think it would be wise if you let Derek help oversee the financial side of your bakery," Dad said firmly. "He has experience with money management. He could make sure you don't get in over your head. It would give us all peace of mind." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. I stared at Dad, then at Derek, who was smirking like a cat who'd already caught the mouse. "You want Derek to run my bakery?" I asked slowly. "Not run it," Dad said quickly. "Just manage the important parts, finances, business planning, things you're not equipped to handle. You'd still do the baking, of course." Derek leaned forward, grinning. "Think of it this way, Rachel. You do the fun part, mixing batter, decorating cupcakes, playing with frosting. I'll handle the grown-up stuff. That way, everyone wins. Everyone except me. I sat there, my hands clenched under the table, trying not to let them see how much this was getting to me. My own family, who hadn't even shown up to support me, was now telling me I wasn't capable of running my own business and suggesting Derek, of all people, swoop in and take control. I don't think that's necessary, I finally said, my voice low but steady. I've managed the finances myself so far. I have a business plan, I've done market research, and I've saved money for emergencies. I don't need Derek overseeing anything. Dad's expression hardened, the same look I'd seen countless times growing up when I dared to argue with him. Rachel, we're only looking out for you. This isn't about control. It's about guidance. Derek has a proven track record in finance. You're passionate about baking, and we want to make sure that passion doesn't blind you to poor business decisions. Look, little sister, Derek said, leaning back with his arms crossed, I'm just offering to help. You don't have to take it if you don't want to, but don't say I didn't offer when things go south. I know what it takes to make real money, and right now, I'm not sure you do. Something inside me snapped. Years of being dismissed, ignored, and talked down to crashed over me all at once. The grand opening they'd missed, the hours I'd poured into my dream, the customers who'd already started coming back, none of it mattered to them. They only saw my supposed incompetence. Do you even understand what you're saying? I asked, gripping the edge of the table. I didn't just open this bakery yesterday on a whim. I've been planning this for 3 years. I've researched suppliers, studied profit margins, learned food safety regulations. I've put in the work, the money, the sleepless nights. This isn't just a hobby. This is my life. Mom sighed again, like I was being overly dramatic. Rachel, we understand that, but life isn't fair. You can't just expect everything to work out because you work hard. Derek is offering practical help. That's all. I looked at Derek, whose smirk had grown wider. Practical help. I said slowly, my voice rising. You mean taking over the parts that actually matter so you can claim credit for any success while I just play with frosting? Derek laughed, a condescending sound that made my skin crawl. You're making it sound so dramatic. I'm just trying to help. And honestly, Rachel, you don't have to be so defensive about this. No one's trying to take your passion away from you. You'll still bake, but you're inexperienced with business. You'll make costly mistakes. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in on me. Every instinct screamed at me to explode, to shout, to throw those papers across the room. But I had to stay calm. I had to think clearly. I'll make mistakes, I repeated, my voice quieter but with an edge like broken glass. Derek, I've already launched the bakery. Customers came. They liked what I made. They came back the next day. Do you know what that means? It means I can do this without you or anyone else telling me how to run my own business. Dad's eyebrows furrowed, and I saw Mom's jaw tighten. The same looks they'd always given me when I dared challenge their authority. Rachel, you're letting your pride get in the way, Dad said sternly. You need guidance. You've never been one to make practical decisions. Remember when you wanted to major in art instead of business? We're trying to save you from repeating those mistakes. I felt something break inside me then. All those years of being the impractical one, the dreamer, the child who needed constant supervision. Even now, with proof of my capability literally baking in ovens across town, they couldn't see me as anything more than their irresponsible little girl. I leaned forward, my elbows on the table, and spoke slowly, deliberately. Do you know why none of you came to my opening yesterday? I asked, looking each of them in the eye. Because you all had something else to celebrate. Derek's car and his award. And you didn't even bother to tell me. Not one of you. You left me to wonder all day if my own family cared enough to show up. There was a brief, uncomfortable silence. Lindsay finally put her phone down and looked at me, a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, or annoyance, crossing her face. Derek shrugged like it was no big deal. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. It was a scheduling conflict, Mom said finally, in that tone that made it clear she thought I was overreacting. A conflict. I repeated incredulously. You mean you chose Derek over me? You chose celebrating him and left me out completely. And now, after everything, you want to tell me I need his help running something I built myself. Derek leaned forward, his eyes glinting with that familiar superiority. I think you're being overly emotional here. Everyone deserves guidance when they're starting something new. You've done well so far, Rachel, but don't let your feelings cloud your business judgment. That's a dangerous combination. That's when the calm settled over me. A strange, cold clarity that I'd never felt before. I realized this wasn't just about the bakery anymore. This was about respect, about finally showing them that I wasn't the helpless kid they'd always seen me as. I picked up the papers Dad had spread out, looked at Derek, then at my parents. You're not trying to help me, I said slowly. You're trying to control me. You want to take credit for something you had nothing to do with. Well, you can keep your guidance. I don't need it. Not from any of you. Dad's face darkened, and I could see Mom's frustration building. Lindsay whispered under her breath, she's being ridiculous. Derek's smirk faded slightly, replaced by a flash of surprise. I could see it in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to fight back like this. Then Dad leaned back, pinching the bridge of his nose, and said in that quiet, dangerous tone I knew all too well, Rachel, you're going to regret this. You think you're ready to run a business? You think you can handle everything on your own? You're young, naive, and stubborn. You don't realize how much you're risking. We were trying to protect you, and you. I cut him off, my voice steady and ice-cold. Protect me? No, you are protecting yourselves. Making sure Derek looks good, making sure I stay small so you can control the narrative. That's not protection. That's manipulation. The room went dead silent. Even Lindsay looked shocked. Mom's jaw tightened until I could see the muscles in her neck. Derek's eyes narrowed dangerously. I knew I had hit a nerve, and I wasn't done. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. I won't fail, I said, my voice rising with conviction I'd never felt before. And when I succeed, not if, when, it won't be because of any of you. It will be because I believed in myself when no one else would. Derek let out a hollow laugh that didn't reach his eyes. We'll see about that, little sister. And that's when I realized something both terrifying and exhilarating. I was done playing their game. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I could feel it in my bones. I was going to prove them wrong. Not just a little wrong. I was going to make them wish they'd never underestimated me. Over the following weeks, I threw myself into Sweet Dawn with a vengeance. I networked with local coffee shops and convinced 3 of them to carry my pastries. I secured my first catering contract for law firms' monthly meetings. I started offering custom birthday cakes and wedding desserts. Every success was documented, photographed, and carefully recorded. The breakthrough came when the Detroit Food and Wine magazine reached out. They wanted to feature Sweet Dawn in their Rising Stars section, a spotlight on new businesses making waves in the local food scene. The photo shoot was scheduled for a Saturday morning, and I made sure everything was perfect. What I didn't expect was for my family to show up. They walked in during the middle of the interview, Derek still wearing that same smug expression, clearly expecting to find me struggling. Instead, they found a line of customers stretching out the door, a professional photographer capturing the bustling atmosphere, and me confidently discussing expansion plans with a respected food journalist. I watched Derek's face change as he took in the scene, the packed bakery, the magazine crew, the obvious success I'd achieved entirely without his guidance. Dad looked stunned. Mom's mouth was slightly open. Even Lindsay seemed genuinely impressed for once. The journalist noticed them and asked if they were family. Oh yes, I said with a sweet smile, they're the ones who told me I'd fail without help. After the crew left and the bakery finally emptied, my family lingered uncomfortably. Derek tried to save face, muttering something about beginner's luck, but his usual confidence was shaken. Dad started to say something about being concerned for my success, but I cut him off. You know what the funniest part is? I said, wiping down the counter that had served hundreds of customers that day. You were so busy trying to control me that you missed watching me succeed. And now it's too late to be part of it. The magazine feature came out 2 weeks later. Sweet Dawn was featured on the cover with the headline, Local Baker Rises Above, How Rachel Morrison Built Her Dream Against All Odds. The article mentioned my family's lack of support and how I'd succeeded despite their predictions of failure. My phone buzzed constantly with congratulations from friends, new customers, and even business partnership offers. The family group chat, however, remained silent. I never did forgive them, and I never softened my stance. I simply moved forward, stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. Sweet Dawn became the most successful bakery in our district within 6 months. I hired Frank's granddaughter, expanded the menu, and even opened a second location. Derek's finance career hit a rough patch when his company downsized. He never asked me for a job, but I heard through mutual friends that he considered it. The thought made me smile every time. For the first time in my life, I felt like I truly belonged in my own story. And the best part? I did it all without a single bit of their help, guidance, or approval. Thanks for reading my story. Sometimes the people who should support you the most are the ones holding you back. But when you finally break free and prove them wrong, that's when you realize you never needed their permission to succeed in the first place.